readers. Welcome to Lesson 3. Who's telling the story? Let's think about our favorite fiction story ever. It can be something you read recently or something you read when you were younger. Does everyone have a story in mind? Now let's think about who told the story. No, not who read it to you, but who in the story actually told you about the other characters and what took place. The person or the voice who tells the story is known as the narrator. In your favorite fiction text, did the main character tell the story? Or was it a voice that seemed to be outside looking in? Fiction writers create a person to tell their story. This person is the narrator. The narrator delivers the point of view of the story. It is important for us as readers to think about who the narrator is as we are reading, because it is important to our understanding of the story. Two possible types of narrators are the first person narrator and the third person narrator. The first person narrator uses the pronoun I to tell the story from the main character's point of view. If one of you tells a story about the last thing you did that was really fun and exciting, you are the first person narrator. The third person narrator uses the pronoun he or she or they, or refers to the main character by their name, and does not take part in the story. A third person narrator is like an outsider looking in on the story, not a character in the story. We readers rely on this person to tell us everything we need to know about the story. For example, if you were to tell me about your favorite movie, you would tell me using the names of all the characters or calling the characters he or she. As we read today, let's identify our narrator. Let's revisit our story, Jalapeno Bagels, that we read yesterday. I'm going to reread the first page. What should I bring to school on Monday for International Day? I ask my mother. My teacher told us to bring something from our culture. You can bring a treat from the panaderia, she suggests. Panaderia is what our mama calls our bakery. Help us bake on Sunday, then you can pick out whatever you want. It's a deal, I tell her. I like helping at the bakery. It's warm there and everything smells so good. Did you notice the use of I? Pablo is our narrator. So this story is an example of first person narration. Now we're going to read why spiders live on ceilings or in ceilings. This is from our text, The Adventures of Spider, West African Folktales. As we read, we're going to identify the type of narration by paying attention to key signal words. Once upon a time, the rainy season came to the forest, as it must come every year. But this time there was more rain than ever before. Nobody had ever seen anything like it. At night the water fell with a roar like thunder. In the morning it beat against the branches of the trees and tore their leaves from them. It pounded against the thatched roofs of all of the villages and rushed about the footpaths. Little girls set pots under the sky to catch water and ran back slipping and sliding. The small friendly rivers became deep and wide and covered the sides of their banks. During the darkness, the people fastened their doors and didn't even look outside, for they could hear nothing but rain, rain, rain. The animals in the forest, too, were frightened by all the water. Hare could not find meadows of grass for his dinner. Elephant could not walk through the trees to chew the young branches. Tortoise could not crawl slowly along the earth to catch insects. And Spider, who had been too lazy to plant his farm or set his fish traps, had nothing to eat at all. I'm going to stop right there. So, on this part of the text, we are calling the characters by their names: hare, elephant, tortoise, spider. Those are signal words that tell us that this is possibly third person narration. Let's read to see if we see more signal words. Worst of all, the great leopard, another character who hunts at night, was hungry and had to stalk the forest during the day. One afternoon, after many days, love those transition words right there, those transitional phrases, the rain stopped. Spider set out at once to look for something to eat. He went down the wide path that led to the river. Leopard was hunting too, with a hungry look in his eye. He walked quietly on his 4 soft feet along the path that led to the river. That is how it happened that Spider and Leopard walked right into each other. Now, usually, transition word, Leopard loves a fat and juicy supper. He never thinks of anything as puny as a spider. But today, he thought even Spider would taste good. And so he stopped to chat and tried to look friendly. Did you notice that this story is being told about Spider and not by Spider? These signal words tell us that this is third person narration. Let's continue reading. What do you think is going to happen to Spider? Do you think Leopard is going to get him? He very well could, because Spider is not our narrator, and our story can continue without him. Let's find out. Good afternoon, Mr. Spider, said Leopard. How do you fare in all this wet weather? Now, Spider was lazy and very naughty, but he was not stupid. He knew at once that Leopard's voice was much too sweet. I am well, Mr. Leopard, but I am in a great hurry, he answered. And with that, Spider jumped behind a great palm leaf, and Leopard could not find him no matter how hard he tried. Leopard was so angry, he roared a roar that echoed against the hills. He sharpened his claws, and his eyes turned green. Never mind, he thought after a few minutes. I will go to Spider's house, and I will hide behind his door, and I will wait for him to come back, and then I will eat him. And if he brings any food, I will eat that too. Leopard went up the path from the river. He went into Spider's little house, which was made of banana leaves. And there he made himself into a round ball. He put his nose on his great paws, and he sat down to wait. These little eyes. Haven't I already told you that Spider was not stupid? Well, he guessed exactly what Leopard would do. And so he took some time to think about how he should handle the matter. First, he went to the river and caught some fish left in the traps by the people. Then he went to the farm and ate a cassava, for it is custom that a hungry man can help himself to as much food as he needs, and no one will mind. When he had had enough to eat, Spider spent the afternoon looking for all of his friends. He stayed away from his house as long as he could. Finally, it began to get dark. The sky filled with clouds, once again the rain began to fall. At last, Spider had to go home. So he went up the path that led past the river and near his little house made of banana leaves. All right, so I'm going to stop right there just for a second, because did anybody else notice that up here in the first sentence it said, "Haven't I already told you that Spider was not stupid?" That might be a little confusing, because sometimes the storyteller is going to talk to the readers. Remember in the first story we read, he says, "Do you know how this is going to end?" Or do you know what's going to happen next? And he says, "No, no, no, you could never guess. I will tell you." And so the narrator sometimes breaks that fourth wall and like talks to his audience. So that can get a little confusing. You want to make sure that you're looking for what is happening most of the time. Okay, so it sounds like Spider is going to outwit Leopard. He sounds pretty smart. Let's see. Spider looked at the earth to see if Leopard had left any tracks. He listened to see if Leopard had made any sound. He saw nothing and he heard nothing. Still, he knew the ways of Leopard and he decided to try something else. So he kept walking down the path, humming to himself, just as though he were thinking of nothing. And suddenly he cried out, "Ho, ho, ho, my banana leaf house!" Nobody answered. Everything was silent, and Spider walked a little nearer, and still there was silence. Nobody said anything. "That's funny," said Spider loudly. "My little house always answers me when I call her. I wonder what is wrong." So this is another place where point of view can get tricky. See the eye right here? That's because that eye is part of the dialogue, so it does not count toward point of view. We still know that the narrator is outside the story, looking in, and the narrator, Spider, is not our narrator. He is just speaking some dialogue. So you got to be careful about that when the eye is right there in the dialogue. Once again, with all his might, he shouted, "Ho, ho, my banana leaf house, how are you?" And from deep inside the house came a small, high voice. "I am fine, Mr. Spider. Come on in." Then Spider burst out laughing. "Now I know where you are, Mr. Leopard, and you shall never catch me," he said. And with that, he ran, quick as a flash, through the window and up to the highest corner of the ceiling. Leopard could not catch him, although he tried and tried. Spider was warm and dry and safe in the ceiling. And I suppose he decided to live. That's why he decided to live there. And he is living there still. So Spider wins and outwits Leopard after all. He is a pretty smart little guy, just like the narrator says. The person telling our stories, the narrator, is so important because he or she helps us understand the stories through his or her eyes. As we continue to study fiction, let's remember to determine what type of narrator is telling our story: first person or third person. Once we determine the narrator by looking at the use of I or he, she, or they, we readers will gain further insight into our stories, characters, plots, and themes. Boys and girls, if you will go to the next slide to see what to do in your reader's notebook today.